Hello, Year 9. I've just created this short video just to explain this 12-mark question. It's been a while since we've addressed a 12-mark question because we've been focusing on the other slightly newer types of questions. So we're just going back to the 12-mark question, which I know, have already completed with your American civil rights and Vietnam. The 12-mark question is exactly the same as the one that you've already addressed for your paper 3. And in fact, in some ways, this 12-mark question is one of the most important to get right because it appears on all 3 of your GCSE history papers. So it is worth us going back over and just reminding you on how to structure your 12-mark question. So I'm going to take you through this, and I'm going to offer a model answer for your first paragraph. And I really encourage you to use my model answer as your first paragraph, and then your task will be to write the following 2 paragraphs in order to complete the 12-mark question. Okay, then you'll need to upload this to show my homework as part of today's lesson. Okay, but just to start off, I would encourage you all to write down the question into your books. Okay, it's really important that you have this for your revision purposes, and so you can come back and take a look at what you've written later on. So I always encourage, as good practice, to write the exam question. And today's exam question explain why there was changes in the ways about the causes of disease and illness were communicated in the period 1500 to 1700. You may use the following in your answer: the printing press, the Royal Society, but you must also include information of your own. It's 12 marks. So again, some things to highlight here to you. 1500 to 1700 in the exam paper, they may write Renaissance period, but they might write specific numbers, and you should feel comfortable with knowing which time periods, which dates link to which period we are studying: Renaissance, medieval period, the modern period. Okay, so don't let this put you off. Okay, is what I'm trying to say to you. Another thing to emphasize or repeat to you is that you're always given 2 bullet points, and they're there. The examiner thinks they're there to help you, but if you're finding that these 2 points here are going to throw you off, don't use them. They can be confusing and misleading. And this is a 12-mark question, as you know, but in order to get the maximum amount of marks, you have to include information of your own. It's really important that you do that. Otherwise, you just won't be able to get to the top mark bands. Okay, this is you will get 6 marks for your for the explain why, and that's your AO2. I'm just going to write this in here, your AO2. So you get 6 marks for your AO2. AO2, and when we're at the explaining why, and it's important to differentiate this, the explaining why for your medicine through time paper is really centered on change or continuity, and something we've addressed a couple of times in our learning together over this working from home period, whereas other papers have a different focus. This is the only difference, and I'll highlight it to you. We have to make sure that we are addressing change or continuity. And then the AO1 here is addressing your other 6 marks is your great own knowledge, your knowledge and understanding of the topic, adding in your details here for that. And again, this is really important that you have specific and broad-ranging knowledge and understanding in order to get to those top mark bands, those level 9 mark bands up there. And actually, the 12-mark question is very formulaic, and again, it's very easy to get the top marks. So We've got the structure here. You need to write 3 P paragraphs. And your P paragraphs, just to remind you, is your point, evidence, and explain. So as long as you can keep that in the back of your mind and you have the key knowledge and information to hand, it's quite easy to do well on these answers, on these questions. So I have chosen on purpose quite a difficult question for you to tackle here. This is, I would say, probably the hardest it's going to get. And I did spend some time racking my brains a little bit on this question. So I think I've made this a little bit easier for you by addressing the hardest paragraph that you might have to. So the question was, explain why there were changes in the ideas about the causes of disease and illness. Explain why there were changes in the ways ideas about the causes of disease and illness were communicated in the period 1500 to 1700. It's quite a mouthful. Okay, so it's not looking about changes in causes and disease and illness. It's looking about the communication of those ideas. And I think that's what makes it hard, okay? And I would agree with the bullet points given. I think the printing press would be a great paragraph. Great P paragraph, and the Royal Society would be a great P paragraph. And we've written about those in today's lesson, so you can use that information. And I think using your own information, I think this third paragraph would be tricky for most people to get. Okay, so that's why I've done it for you. So I've written, I think that humanism would be another reason for why there were changes in the communication of ideas during the period 1500 to 1700. And I've written my point. One reason why there were changes in the ideas about the causes of disease and illness were communicated in the period 1500 to 1700 was because of humanism. So that's my point. Okay. Then you need to add in your really good own knowledge, and this is where this middle point of the P paragraph comes in, our evidence. For example, humanism was characterized by a love of learning. Humanists also rejected the Christian view that God was responsible for everything. In addition, more experimentation began to take place and new ideas were starting to become widespread, mainly because the church has less authority. Okay, so that's our first E, that's our AO1 that we're really addressing here at this point. And then we get onto our final part of our P paragraph, and this is our AO2. This is our linking to the change in continuity and causation aspect here. And we're saying, why has this changed? And we're saying this here, this caused a change because humanism allowed for new ideas about science to be communicated and reduced the power of the church over medical knowledge. So I hope I've explained that clearly to you there, of where each section of our P paragraph comes in. And also, I think most importantly, because this is where it's slightly different from your other exam papers, is how the AO2 comes into your 12-mark question here. Any problems at all, feel free to contact your teacher and they will be able to help you a little bit more. But as I reiterated again, your task for today's lesson is to answer this 12-mark question. I would start off by writing out the question. I'd write in purple pen or write teacher model at the side and write out this paragraph. If you're unsure of how P is structured, highlight or write in the margin where the point, where the evidence and where the explain is, and then write out your other two using the structure that is in Show My Homework. Okay. Many thanks for listening.